The autumn morning in Chicago was cold and gray, the kind of day where the wind bit at your fingertips and the sky seemed to press down on the city like a heavy blanket. The streets of downtown were already alive, though, with the hum of early commuters, the honk of taxis, and the distant rumble of the L train. Puddles from last night's rain glistened on the sidewalks, reflecting the muted glow of streetlights that hadn't yet switched off. Mia Thompson, 24, navigated the wet pavement with careful steps, her worn sneakers squeaking faintly with each stride. She clutched a small, faded lunch bag in one hand and a pair of cleaning gloves in the other, her fingers stiff from the chill. Her uniform, a simple navy smock and black pants, was clean but threadbare, the hem fraying at the edges. Her shoes, once black, were now a dull gray, the soles so thin she could feel every pebble beneath her feet. Still, Mia walked with purpose, her chin up, her dark brown eyes fixed on the path ahead. She couldn't afford to be late. Not today, not ever. Mia worked as a cleaner at the Grand Meridian, a towering hotel in the heart of Chicago's Loop, where the city's elite gathered for business deals, galas, and overpriced cocktails. The job wasn't glamorous, but it paid the bills. Barely. It kept a roof over her head and food on the table for her younger brother, Noah, who was all she had left after their parents died 3 years ago in a car accident. At 12, Noah was a bright spot in her life, all wide smiles and endless questions, but raising him alone in a cramped South Side apartment meant every dollar mattered. Mia had learned to stretch a paycheck like it was an art form, buying day-old bread from the corner store and mending their clothes with a needle and thread she'd inherited from their mother. The cleaning job was her lifeline, and she treated it with the reverence of someone who knew what it meant to lose everything. As she turned onto Michigan Avenue, the wind picked up, tugging at her ponytail and sending a shiver down her spine. The Grand Meridian loomed ahead, its glass facade catching the first weak rays of sunlight. Mia quickened her pace, checking the cheap plastic watch on her wrist. 7 minutes to spare. She could make it. The street was busier here, cars zipping. Past in a blur of chrome and exhaust, she stayed close to the curb, avoiding the deeper puddles that had pooled overnight. Her lunch bag, a peanut butter sandwich and a bruised apple, swung lightly at her side. She was thinking of Noah, who she'd left sleeping in their one-bedroom apartment, his school books neatly stacked on the kitchen table. She'd kissed his forehead before leaving, whispering, "Be good today, okay?" Even though he couldn't hear her. It was a ritual, a small anchor in her chaotic world. The roar of an engine snapped her out of her thoughts. A sleek black SUV, its paint gleaming like polished obsidian, barreled down the street too fast for the narrow lane. Mia instinctively stepped closer to the curb, but it was too late. The vehicle's tires hit a deep puddle with a sickening splash, sending a wave of muddy water arcing through the air. It hit Mia like a slap, soaking her from head to toe. Her uniform clung to her skin, heavy and cold, the brown water dripping from her hair onto her face. Her lunch bag was drenched, the paper disintegrating in her hand. She froze, her breath catching in her throat as the SUV slowed just enough for the tinted window to roll down. A woman leaned out, her bright red lipstick stark against her pale skin. She wore oversized sunglasses that screamed wealth, and her blonde hair was pulled into a flawless updo. "Stay out of the way, loser!" she shouted, her voice sharp with amusement. Laughter spilled from the car, her, maybe someone else inside, before. The window rolled up and the SUV sped off, its taillights disappearing around the corner. Mia stood rooted to the spot, her lips trembling, her eyes stinging with the urge to cry. Mud streaked her face, her clothes, her hands. The gloves she'd been holding were ruined, the fabric soaked through. Passers-by glanced at her, some with pity, others with indifference, but no one stopped. Chicago didn't pause for anyone. Across the street, a black sedan idled quietly, its engine a low hum. Inside, Lucas Bennett watched the scene unfold, his hands resting lightly on the steering wheel. At 38, Lucas was a tech entrepreneur who'd made his fortune quietly, building a software empire that powered half the city's businesses without ever seeking the spotlight. He was a silent investor in the Grand Meridian, a fact known only to the hotel's top brass. Dressed in a simple gray hoodie and jeans, he blended into the city's morning rush, his sharp green eyes hidden behind a pair of unassuming glasses. He'd been on his way to a meeting when he'd pulled over to take a call, but now his attention was fixed on the young woman standing in the mud. Lucas recognized the driver of the SUV immediately, Claire Donovan, a social media influencer whose face was plastered across billboards and Instagram feeds. Her father owned half the city's real estate, and Claire had parlayed that privilege into a career of curated selfies and designer handbags. She was everything Lucas despised: flashy, entitled, and careless. But it was the woman she'd splashed who held his gaze. There was something in the way she stood, her shoulders squared despite the humiliation, her hands clutching the ruined lunch bag like it was still worth saving. She didn't cry, didn't shout, didn't collapse. She just picked up her soggy gloves, shook off what water she could, and started walking again, her steps deliberate, her head high. Lucas's jaw tightened. He knew what it was like to be invisible, to be dismissed by people like Claire who saw the world as their playground. His own mother had been a single parent, a hotel maid who'd worked double shifts to keep him fed, her hands rough from years of scrubbing floors. She died when he was in college, but her quiet strength lived in him still. Watching Mia, he felt a pang of something he hadn't felt in years: connection. He pulled out his phone and dialed his assistant, Sarah, a no-nonsense woman who'd been with him since his startup days. "Find out who that girl is," he said, his voice calm but firm. "The one who just got splashed on Michigan Avenue. I want to know everything." Mia reached the Grand Meridian with 3 minutes to spare, but the damage was done. Her uniform was a mess, the navy fabric mottled with brown stains, her hair plastered to her forehead. She slipped in through the employee entrance, hoping to avoid attention, but Mrs. Rivera, her supervisor, was waiting in the break room, her arms crossed. Mrs. Rivera was in her 50s, with a stern face and a no-excuses attitude honed by years of managing a rotating cast of cleaners and bellhops. "Mia, you're late," she snapped, her eyes narrowing at the state of Mia's clothes. "And what is this mess?" Mia lowered, her gaze, her cheeks burning. I got splashed by a car, ma'am. I tried to clean up, but—" Her voice trailed off, the weight of the morning pressing down on her. "No excuses," Mrs. Rivera said, though her tone softened slightly. "You know how important today is. We've got a VIP group checking in at noon, and this place needs to be spotless. Change into a spare uniform and get to work." Mia nodded, swallowing hard, and headed to the locker room. Her co-workers glanced at her as she passed, some whispering, others shaking their heads in pity. Jake, a wiry cleaner in his 30s, who'd been at the hotel longer than Mia, smirked. "Rough morning, princess," he said under his breath, loud enough for her to hear. Mia ignored him, her hands trembling as she opened her locker. The spare uniform was too big, the sleeves dangling past her wrists, but it was dry. She changed quickly, tying her damp hair into a tight bun, and grabbed her cleaning cart. The lobby of the Grand Meridian was a world apart from the gritty streets outside, marble floors, crystal chandeliers, and air that smelled of lavender and money. Mia pushed her cart to the West Wing, where she was assigned to clean the conference rooms. Every scrub of the floor, every wipe of a glass door was mechanical, her mind replaying the morning's humiliation. The laughter, the cold water, the weight of eyes on her as she stood there, drenched. She thought of Noah, who'd be waking up soon, getting ready for school. She couldn't let him see her break. Not now, not ever. Meanwhile, in a sleek office, tower on Wacker Drive, Lucas sat at his desk, a wall of glass behind him, offering a view of the Chicago River. His office was minimalist: white walls, a single potted plant, and a desk cluttered with monitors and notepads. Sarah walked in, a tablet in hand, her expression all business. "Her name's Mia Thompson," she said, sliding the tablet across the desk. 24, lives in Englewood, works 2 cleaning jobs, one here, one at a downtown office building. She's raising her younger brother, Noah, age 12. Parents. Died 3 years ago in a car crash. No other family. Rent's paid on time, but she's got no savings, barely scraping by. Lucas opened the file, his eyes landing on a photo of Mia, likely from an employee ID. She was smiling softly, her dark hair framing her face, her eyes bright despite the grainy quality of the image. Next to her was a smaller photo of Noah, grinning, with a gap-toothed smile. Lucas tapped the screen lightly. "She didn't deserve that," he muttered, almost to himself. Sarah raised an eyebrow. "You want me to do something about it?" Lucas leaned back in his chair, his fingers steepled. "Not yet," he said. "Let's watch a little more." Across town, Claire Donovan stood in her penthouse overlooking Lake Michigan, adjusting a diamond-encrusted bracelet on her wrist. The apartment was a shrine to her brand, white leather furniture, gold accents, and a floor-to-ceiling mirror, where she snapped her daily selfies. Her phone buzzed with notifications, likes, comments, brand deals. At 32, Claire was Chicago's darling influencer, her Instagram boasting 2 million followers, her name synonymous with luxury. She was the daughter of Richard Donovan, a real estate tycoon who owned half the city's skyline, including the Grand Meridian. Claire sipped a kale smoothie, her manicured nails tapping the glass. "That girl was standing too close to the road," she said to her assistant Paige, who hovered nearby with a nervous smile. "She's lucky I didn't clip her." Paige nodded, her eyes darting to the floor. "Yeah, totally," she said, her tone unconvincing. Claire didn't notice. In her world, people like Mia didn't register. Faceless workers who cleaned her hotels, served her coffee, and faded into the background. She checked her reflection one last time, satisfied, and headed out for a photo shoot. Life was good when you were born to win. Back at the Grand Meridian, Mia's day dragged on. Her back ached from bending over to scrub baseboards, her hands raw from the cleaning chemicals. She worked through the pain, whispering to herself, "One more day. Just get through today." At noon, she took her break behind the hotel, sitting on a crate near the loading dock. Her lunch was ruined, the sandwich soggy, the apple bruised. But she ate it anyway, tearing off the damp bits and swallowing her pride with each bite. She checked her phone for messages from Noah, hoping he'd made it to school okay. Nothing yet. She sighed, her breath visible in the cold air. A man walked past the hotel entrance, pausing briefly. It was Lucas, dressed in a baseball cap and sunglasses, blending in with the lunchtime crowd. He pretended to check his phone, but his eyes were on Mia. He saw the way she ate carefully, saving every crumb, the way she glanced at her phone with a mix of hope and worry. There was no pretense in her, no makeup, no polished smile, just a young woman carrying the weight of the world and still moving forward. Lucas's chest tightened. He didn't know her, but something about Mia reminded him of his mother, who'd worked herself to the bone for him, never asking for anything in return. He turned and walked away, a plan forming in his mind. She didn't know it yet, but her life was about to change. The next morning, Mia woke at 5 a.m., her body aching but her resolve intact. She tied Noah's shoelaces, packed his lunch, a cheese sandwich and a granola bar, and kissed his forehead. "Be good at school, okay?" she said, ruffling his hair. Noah grinned, his eyes bright. "You too, Mia." She smiled, the warmth of his words carrying her through the long bus. Ride to the Grand Meridian. Her good uniform was still soaking in a bucket at home, the mud stains stubborn, so she wore the oversized spare again. When she arrived at the hotel, something strange awaited her. In her locker was a small paper bag. Inside were a pair of new cleaning gloves, a warm breakfast sandwich wrapped in foil, and a folded note. Mia opened it, her hands trembling. The note read, "For the woman who carries on with dignity, even when the world is unkind." The handwriting was neat, unfamiliar. She looked around the locker room, but no one was watching. Her co-workers were busy with their own routines, Jake muttering about a late shift as he laced his boots. Mia unwrapped the sandwich, the smell of eggs and bacon making her stomach rumble. She hadn't had a hot breakfast in months. She took a small bite, savoring the warmth, and for the first time in a long while, she smiled. Far away in his office, Lucas accessed the hotel's internal camera feed, a perk of his investment in their security system. He watched Mia's reaction, her cautious smile, the way she tucked the note into her pocket like it was something precious. "Small steps," he whispered to himself, a faint smile tugging at his lips. He leaned back in his chair, his mind already planning the next move. The Grand Meridian buzzed with its usual morning rhythm, bellhops wheeling luggage carts, guests sipping overpriced coffee in the lobby, and cleaners like Mia moving like ghosts. Through the polished halls, Mia pushed her cleaning cart down the West Wing corridor, the wheels squeaking faintly against the marble floor. Her oversized spare uniform hung loosely on her frame, but she'd rolled up the sleeves and tucked in the shirt to make it look presentable. The memory of the warm breakfast sandwich and the mysterious note from yesterday lingered in her mind, a small spark of warmth in an otherwise grueling routine. She didn't know who'd left the gift, but it had carried her through the day, a quiet reminder that someone, somewhere, had seen her. As she polished a brass doorknob to a conference room, Mrs. Rivera approached, her clipboard tucked under. Her arm, her stern expression was softer than usual, almost hesitant. "Mia Thompson," she said, her voice carrying the weight of authority. Mia straightened, wiping her hands on her smock, her heart picking up speed. Being singled out was rarely good news. "Yes, ma'am." Mrs. Rivera glanced at her clipboard, as if confirming something she already knew. "You've been reassigned. Starting tomorrow, you're on the VIP floor. Maintenance crew. Better pay, less scrubbing. Report to Mr. Daniels at 7 a.m. sharp." She paused, her eyes narrowing slightly. "Don't mess this up." Mia blinked, her mouth opening but no words coming out. The VIP floor was a different world. Plush carpets, suites that cost more per night than her monthly rent, and guests who tipped in crisp bills if you were lucky. It was a coveted position, usually reserved for cleaners with years of seniority, not someone like her who'd been at the hotel less than 2 years. "Ma'am, are you sure?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "I didn't apply." "For anything. It's been approved," Mrs. Rivera said, cutting her off. "Congratulations." She turned and walked away, her heels clicking against the floor, leaving Mia standing there, stunned. Her hands trembled as she gripped the handle of her cart. Better pay meant more for Noah, new shoes, maybe even a winter coat that actually fit him, but the suddenness of it felt unreal, like a dream she didn't dare trust. In the break room, later that morning, the news spread like wildfire. Mia sat alone at a corner table, nibbling on a granola bar she'd saved from Noah's lunch stash. Her co-workers' whispers followed her like shadows. "VIP floor? Her?" said Tanya, a cleaner, with a decade at the hotel. "She's been here, what, a year and a half?" Jake, leaning against the vending machine, snorted. "Must have charmed someone upstairs. Or maybe she's got dirt on the boss." His tone was light, but his eyes were sharp, cutting into Mia from across the room. She kept her head down, pretending not to hear, but her cheeks burned. She'd done nothing but work hard, keeping her nose clean and her complaints to herself. Why did it feel like she was being punished for good news? Across town, in his office overlooking the Chicago River, Lucas Bennett sat at his desk reviewing a report on his latest software rollout. His assistant, Sarah, knocked lightly before entering, a knowing smile on her face. "It's done," she said, handing him a tablet. "Mia Thompson's been moved to the VIP floor per your request. Regional manager didn't ask too many questions, thanks to your stake in the hotel. Said it was a performance-based reassignment." She raised an eyebrow. "You sure you want to keep this quiet? People are already talking." Lucas glanced at the tablet, which showed Mia's employee profile. Her photo stared back at him, those steady brown eyes holding a quiet strength that tugged at something deep inside him. "Let them talk," he said, his voice calm but resolute. "She's earned it, whether they know it or not." Sarah nodded, used to his cryptic ways, and left the room. Lucas leaned back in his chair, his mind drifting to the muddy street, the splash, the way Mia had kept walking. He'd made the call to the hotel's regional manager last night, leveraging his influence as a silent investor. It was a small move, but it was just the beginning. He wanted to see how far Mia could go when given a chance. Meanwhile, Claire Donovan was in her element, posing for a photo shoot in Millennium Park. The bean gleamed behind her as she tilted her head, her designer coat catching the light just right. Her assistant, Paige, held up a phone, live streaming to Claire's 2 million followers. "Chicago chic, darlings," Claire said, her voice dripping with confidence. "This city's mine, and I'm serving looks." The comments flooded, in heart emojis, fire emojis, fans gushing over her latest outfit. Paige smiled nervously, adjusting the camera angle, but her mind was elsewhere. She'd overheard Claire joking about the street girl she'd splashed yesterday, dismissing it with a laugh. Paige hadn't said anything, but the callousness stuck with her, a splinter she couldn't shake. Back at the hotel, Mia finished her shift and headed to the employee locker room. The whispers followed her, louder now. Jake was there, leaning against her locker, his arms crossed. "VIP floor, huh?" he said, his tone mocking. "What's your secret, Mia? Got a sugar daddy pulling strings?" Mia's jaw tightened, but she kept her voice steady. "I just do my job, Jake. Maybe try it sometime." His smirk faltered and he walked away, muttering under his breath. Mia opened her locker, half expecting another mysterious gift, but it was empty. She sighed, grabbed her damp lunch bag, and headed out into the chilly evening. The bus ride home was long, the city lights blurring past the window. Mia's mind churned with questions. Who had pushed for her promotion? Was it a mistake? And the note? The sandwich? Were they connected? She thought of Noah, who'd be waiting for her with a grin and a story about his day. She couldn't wait to tell him about the VIP floor, about the extra money that might mean a real Christmas this year. When she reached their apartment in Englewood, Noah was sprawled on the couch, his math homework scattered across the coffee table. "Mia!" he called, jumping up to hug her. "You're late. Did you get in trouble?" She laughed, ruffling his hair. "No trouble, kiddo. Actually, I got some good news." She told him about the promotion, watching his eyes light up. "Does that mean I can get new sneakers?" he asked, bouncing on his toes. Mia smiled, her heart swelling. "Maybe. But you gotta keep those grades up, deal." Noah nodded, hugging her again, and for a moment the weight of the world felt lighter. The next morning, Mia stepped onto the VIP floor for the first time, her heart pounding. The air was different up here, cleaner, scented with fresh flowers, and expensive polish. The carpets were plush, the walls adorned with modern art, the silence almost reverent. She wore a new uniform, issued specifically for the VIP crew, crisp and fitted. Mr. Daniels, the floor manager, was a wiry man with a clipboard and a no-nonsense demeanor. "You're the new girl," he said, eyeing her up and down. "Don't let the fancy rooms fool you. These guests notice everything. One speck of dust, and I hear about it. Got it?" Mia nodded, her hands clasped tightly. "Yes, sir." Her first task was to clean Suite 2301, a corner room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Lake Michigan. The bed alone was bigger than her entire apartment, the pillows fluffed to perfection. Mia worked meticulously, polishing every surface, fluffing every cushion, her hands moving with the precision of someone who knew her job was on the line. She was wiping down a marble bathroom counter when a guest entered, a middle-aged man in a tailored suit, his phone pressed to his ear. He barely glanced at her, but Mia smiled politely, stepping aside to let him pass. "Thank you," he muttered, almost as an afterthought, and dropped a $10 bill on the counter before leaving. Mia stared at it, her breath catching. $10 for an hour's work. She tucked it into her pocket, her resolve hardening. She could do this. Lucas, meanwhile, was back at the Grand Meridian, this time in disguise. He wore a plain jacket, a Cubs cap pulled low, and carried a briefcase, to blend in with the business crowd. He'd told Sarah he had a meeting, but in truth he was there to observe Mia. From the lobby he watched her exit the elevator, her cleaning cart in tow. She moved with quiet efficiency, her head low but her posture steady. A guest stopped her, asking for extra towels, and Mia responded with a warm smile, her voice soft but clear. Lucas's lips twitched upward. She didn't just clean, she cared. He made a mental note to check in with Mr. Daniels later. That evening, Claire sat in her penthouse, scrolling through her phone. Her latest post had thousands of likes, but a new notification caught her eye, a grainy photo circulating on Twitter. It showed her SUV, the license plate blurred but unmistakable, splashing a figure on the street. The caption read, "Some people think money buys manners. Guess not." The post had hundreds of retweets, and the comments were brutal, disgusting. Behavior. Who does she think she is? Claire's jaw tightened. She called Paige, her voice sharp. "Who posted this? Find out and get it taken down now." Paige stammered, I'll try, but it's already viral." Claire threw her phone onto the couch, her perfect world, cracking at the edges. At the hotel, Mia's days on the VIP floor settled into a rhythm. The work was demanding, but the pay was better, and the tips were a lifeline. She saved every dollar, dreaming of a day when she and Noah could move to a better neighborhood, maybe even afford a laptop for his schoolwork. But the whispers from her co-workers didn't stop. Jake in particular grew colder, his comments sharper. "Bet she's cozying up to someone big," he said one day in the break room, loud enough for Mia to hear. She ignored him, focusing on her lunch, a sandwich she'd made with leftover bread. But the words stung, planting a seed of doubt. Why had she been promoted? Was someone pulling strings? The answer came indirectly, in the form of another gift. At the end of her shift, Mia opened her locker to find a small bouquet of daisies, simple, not extravagant, and another note, "Keep shining. The world sees you, even if others pretend not to." Her heart raced. She looked around, but the locker room was empty. The flowers were fresh, their petals soft against her fingers. She tucked the note into her pocket, next to the first one, and carried the bouquet home, her mind spinning. Someone was watching her, not to harm her, but to lift her up. The thought was both comforting and unsettling. Lucas watched the hotel's camera feed again that night, a habit he hadn't admitted to Sarah. He saw Mia's reaction to the flowers, the way her fingers lingered on the note, her brow furrowing in quiet wonder. He smiled, but there was a weight in his chest. He was crossing a line, involving himself in a stranger's life, but he couldn't stop. Mia wasn't just a cleaner to him. She was a mirror of his mother's struggles, a reminder of the people society overlooked. He picked up his phone and called Mr. Daniels. "How's Mia Thompson doing on the VIP floor?" he asked, his tone casual. Daniels didn't hesitate. "She's good. Better than good. Guests are noticing her work. Had 2 ask for her by name today. Why the interest?" Lucas deflected. "Just checking on the team." He hung up, his plan taking shape. Mia deserved more than a better job. She deserved a future. But trouble was brewing. Jake, bitter about being passed over for the VIP floor, watched Mia with growing resentment. During a late shift, he slipped into the supply room and swapped her cleaning solution with a slippery polish, a petty act meant to trip her up. The next morning, a guest in suite 2304 slipped on the freshly mopped floor, twisting an ankle. The complaint reached Mr. Daniels before Mia could explain. "Who cleaned this suite?" he barked, storming into the staff room. Mia's heart sank as all eyes turned to her. "It was me, sir," she said, her voice shaking. "But I used the standard solution, I swear." Daniel's face was hard. "You're on thin ice, Thompson. One more mistake and you're back. To the basement floors or out the door." Mia nodded, her eyes burning, but she held back tears. She didn't see Lucas in the lobby, watching from behind a newspaper, his jaw tight. He'd overheard the exchange and made a call to the hotel's security team. "Pull the footage from the supply room last 24 hours, he said. "I want to know exactly what happened." The air in the Grand Meridian staff room was thick with tension, the hum of fluorescent lights barely masking the whispers that followed Mia Thompson. She stood before Mr. Daniels, the VIP floor manager, her hands clasped tightly to keep them from shaking. The accusation hung heavy. A guest had slipped in suite 2304, and Mia's cleaning was to blame. Her heart pounded, each beat a reminder of how fragile her position was. Losing this job wasn't just about money, it was about Noah, their apartment, the life she was scraping together for them. "I used the standard solution, sir," she repeated, her voice steady despite the panic clawing at her chest. "I checked the bottle myself." Mr. Daniels' eyes narrowed, his clipboard gripped like a weapon. "Guests don't slip on standard solutions, Thompson. You're new to the VIP floor, and this is how you start?" "I expected better." He paused, glancing at the other cleaners who lingered nearby, pretending to organize their carts. Jake stood at the back, his arms crossed, a faint smirk tugging at his lips. "You're on probation," Daniels continued. "One more mistake and you're done. Now get back to work." Mia nodded, her throat tight, and turned to her cart. The whispers grew louder as she pushed it down the hall, snippets of judgment cutting into her. "Thought she was special," someone muttered. "VIP floor's too good for her," said another. Mia kept her eyes forward, focusing on the rhythm of her steps, but inside she was unraveling. She hadn't done anything wrong. She'd triple-checked the cleaning solution, followed every protocol. Yet here she was, one step from losing everything. As she reached the elevator, she caught Jake's reflection in the polished doors, his smirk unmistakable. A chill ran through her. Something wasn't right. Across the lobby, Lucas Bennett sat in a cushioned chair, a newspaper spread before him but unread. His Cubs cap was pulled low, his casual jacket blending him into the crowd of business travelers. He'd overheard Daniels's reprimand, seen the way Mia's shoulders stiffened, the way her hands trembled as she gripped her cart. His jaw tightened, a quiet anger simmering. He'd been at the hotel to check on her progress, a habit he hadn't admitted even to himself, but now he was glad he'd come. He pulled out his phone and dialed the hotel's security chief, a contact he'd cultivated through his investment in the Grand Meridian. "I need the supply room footage from last night," he said, his voice low. "Focus on the cleaning solutions. Someone's playing games." By midday, the security team had delivered. Lucas sat in a private meeting room on the hotel's executive floor, a laptop open before him. The grainy footage showed the supply room at 11:47 p.m., lit by a single bulb. Jake slipped in, glancing over his shoulder before swapping a bottle of standard cleaner with another from a shelf marked Specialty Polishes. The label on the new bottle read High Gloss Floor Wax. Lucas's eyes narrowed. Wax on a marble floor was a recipe for disaster. Slippery, dangerous, and exactly what had caused the guest's fall. He forwarded the footage to Mr. Daniels with a single line, "Handle this discreetly." An hour later, Mia was called back to Daniels' office. She braced herself, expecting the worst, but his expression was different now, almost apologetic. "Sit down, Thompson," he said, gesturing to a chair. Mia sat, her hands folded in her lap, her heart racing. Daniels leaned forward, his voice softer than before. "We reviewed the security footage. You were set up. Jake swapped your cleaning solution with floor wax. He's been suspended. Effective. Immediately. You're cleared." Mia's breath caught, relief flooding her like a wave. But it was tinged with hurt. Jake's betrayal stung, a reminder of how her small rise had made her a target. "Thank you, sir," she managed, her voice thick. Daniels nodded, a rare hint of warmth in his eyes. "You're doing good work, Mia. Keep it up." She left the office, her legs shaky, and returned to the VIP floor. The whispers had shifted. Now, some apologetic, others curious, but Mia kept her focus on her work. She polished mirrors, fluffed pillows, and smiled at guests, her quiet strength intact. That evening, as Mia rode the bus home, her phone buzzed with a text from Noah. "Got an A on my math test? Pizza tonight?" She smiled, typing back, "You earned it, kiddo." The extra pay from the VIP floor meant she could splurge on a small pizza, a rare treat. But as she stepped off the bus in Englewood, Her thoughts drifted to the notes, the flowers, the promotion. Someone was pulling strings, and the weight of that unknown made her uneasy. She tucked the daisies from her locker into her bag, their petals still soft, and whispered a small prayer. Let this be real. Let it be good. Meanwhile, Claire Donovan's world was unraveling. The viral Twitter post about her SUV splashing Mia had exploded, racking up thousands of retweets and comments. Bloggers had picked it up. Local news outlets ran stories with headlines like "Influencer's cruel stunt sparks outrage," and her Instagram was flooded with DMs calling her out. Claire sat in her penthouse, her phone glowing with notifications. She didn't dare read. "This is ridiculous!" she snapped at Paige, who hovered nervously with a tablet. "It was an accident. She was in the way." Paige bit her lip, choosing her words carefully. Maybe you could apologize. It might calm things down." Claire laughed, sharp and bitter. Apologize to a nobody? I don't even remember her face. But her confidence was cracking. Her father, Richard Donovan, had called earlier, his voice cold. "Fix this, Claire. You're embarrassing the family." She'd brushed it off, but the words lingered. She opened Twitter, scrolling through the comments. Spoiled brat. No class. Money can't buy decency. Her fingers trembled as she closed the app. For the first time, Claire felt exposed, her perfect image tarnished by a moment she'd barely registered. Lucas, back in his office, was tracking the same online storm. He hadn't posted the photo, likely a bystander with a smartphone, but he wasn't surprised it had spread. Chicago loved a story of the mighty falling, and Claire's arrogance had made her an easy target. He turned his attention to Mia, pulling up her employee file again. Her performance reviews were stellar, even before the VIP floor, and guest feedback mentioned her by name. Polite, thorough, a credit to the hotel. Lucas tapped his pen against the desk, an idea solidifying. A promotion was a start, but Mia deserved more, a chance to build a future, not just survive. He called Sarah. "Set up a scholarship," he said. "Full-ride hospitality management program at DePaul University. Part-time so she can keep working. Make it anonymous, but ensure it goes to Mia Thompson." Sarah raised an eyebrow, but didn't question him. "You're getting deep into this, Lucas," she said, a hint of amusement in her voice. He didn't respond, his gaze fixed on Mia's photo on the screen. She wasn't just a project. She was proof that kindness and resilience could outshine cruelty, and he wanted to see her soar. The next morning, Mia arrived at the Grand Meridian. Her steps lighter despite the early hour. The VIP floor felt less daunting now, her routine settling into a rhythm of quiet pride. She was cleaning a suite when Mr. Daniels called her to the executive office. Her stomach twisted. Another incident? But when she arrived, he handed her a folder, his expression unreadable. "Open it," he said. Inside was a letter from DePaul University, offering a full scholarship for their evening hospitality management program, tailored for working professionals. Mia's hands shook as she read the words. Tuition covered. Books included. Start date next month. A note was attached, typed and unsigned. For the woman whose work speaks louder than words. She looked up at Daniels, her voice barely a whisper. "Is this real?" "It's real," he said, a rare smile breaking through. "Someone believes in you. Don't waste it." Mia nodded, tears pricking her eyes. She left the office, clutching the folder to her chest, and slipped into an empty break room to process. A scholarship, a chance to study, to dream beyond cleaning floors. She thought of her mother, who'd always said, "Work hard, Mia, but don't let it define you." For the first time, Mia felt like she was honoring that. That evening, she shared the news with Noah over pizza, his eyes wide with excitement. "You're going to be a boss, Mia," he said, sauce smeared on his chin. She laughed, ruffling his hair. "Maybe someday, kiddo." But the joy was tempered by doubt. Who was behind this? The notes, the flowers, the promotion, now a scholarship. It was too much to be coincidence. She tucked the folder into her nightstand next to the notes and daisies and fell asleep with a mix of hope and unease. At the hotel, Mia's rise drew more attention. Some staff offered cautious smiles, impressed by her resilience, but others, like Tanya, whispered about favoritism. "Nobody gets that lucky," Tanya said in the locker room, loud enough for Mia to hear. Mia ignored it, focusing on her work. But the weight of their stares grew heavier. She threw herself into the VIP floor, making every suite flawless, her hands steady, even when her heart wasn't. Lucas visited the hotel more often now, always in disguise, a cap, glasses, a casual jacket. He'd linger in the lobby, watching Mia interact with guests, her kindness unwavering even when they ignored her. One afternoon, he approached her in the VIP lounge, pretending to be a guest. "Excuse me," he said, his voice soft. "Can you point me to the Sky Terrace?" Mia turned, her smile warm and professional. "Of course, sir. It's on the 30th floor, East Wing. I can walk you there if you'd like." She led him to the elevator, her steps confident but unassuming. Lucas took a chance. "How long have you worked here?" he asked, keeping his tone casual. Mia hesitated, then answered, "Almost 2 years. It's tough, but it pays the bills." He nodded, his eyes hidden behind sunglasses. "Do you like it?" She paused, her smile faltering for a moment. "I don't think anyone dreams of cleaning, but I'm grateful. I do my best." Lucas stopped walking, struck by her honesty. "You do more than that," he said softly. "You make this place better." Mia gave a small laugh, brushing off the compliment. "Thanks, sir. I try." She turned back to her cart, unaware of the weight of his words. Lucas watched her go, his plan sharpening. She wasn't just surviving, she was shining, and he wanted to give her the tools to keep going. Claire, meanwhile, was spiraling. The viral photo had sparked a hashtag, SOG Chicago Splash, and memes mocking her were everywhere. She sat in a high-end restaurant with her father, Richard, her flawless makeup hiding her frustration. "Someone's targeting me," she said, swirling her wine glass. "First that photo, now people saying I'm heartless. It's a campaign." Richard sipped his scotch, his expression calm but cutting. "Or maybe it's just consequences, Claire. You don't get to splash people and walk away clean." Her jaw tightened. "I haven't done anything wrong." But the words felt hollow. She'd stepped on people her whole life, never looking back, but now the world was looking at her. She stormed out, calling Paige. "Find out who's behind this," she snapped. "I want them buried." Back at the hotel, Mia found another gift in her locker, a leather-bound notebook perfect for her upcoming classes, with a note for the journey ahead. She stared at it, her heart racing. The gifts were no longer a surprise, but they still felt surreal. She tucked the notebook into her bag, her resolve strengthening. Whoever was watching her, they believed in her. And for now, that was enough. The Grand Meridian's ballroom glowed under the soft light of crystal chandeliers, the air filled with the hum of live jazz and the clink of champagne glasses. It was the hotel's 25th anniversary gala, a glittering affair attended by Chicago's elite business tycoons, politicians, and influencers who moved through the room like they owned it. Mia Thompson stood at the edge of the crowd, her heart pounding in her chest. She wore a simple sky-blue gown, borrowed from a thrift store but tailored to fit her perfectly, its fabric catching the light as she moved. No diamonds, no designer. Labels, just Mia, her posture straight, her smile quiet but genuine. Guests turned to look, some whispering, others nodding in quiet admiration. Tonight, she wasn't a cleaner. She was the guest of honor. Weeks had passed since the scholarship letter arrived, and Mia's life had shifted in ways she'd never imagined. Her evening classes at DePaul University were intense, filled with case studies and management theories. But she thrived, her professors already praising her sharp insights. She balanced school with her part-time shifts on the VIP floor, her days long, but her spirit lighter. The mysterious gifts continued. A planner for her studies, a warm scarf for Chicago's biting autumn, each accompanied by a note, "You're stronger than you know. The world is watching." Mia kept them in a shoebox under her bed, next to the daisies and the first note. Their words a quiet anchor when doubt crept in. But doubt was never far away. The whispers at work had softened, but not vanished. Some staff now greeted her with respect, impressed by her resilience, but others, like Tanya, still muttered about favoritism. And then there was the online storm. The Chicago Splash hashtag had grown, fueled by a blurry photo of Claire Donovan's SUV splashing Mia on Michigan Avenue. Blogs and local news outlets ran with it, painting Mia as a symbol of perseverance and Claire as a villain of privilege. Mia hadn't asked for the attention, she barely used social media, but the story had taken on a life of its own. A local blogger called it "From Mud to Merit, a Cleaner's Rise," and the post went viral, comments flooding in, "She's an inspiration. This is what real strength looks like." Claire, meanwhile, was crumbling. The backlash had cost her sponsorships, her Instagram followers dropping by the thousands. She sat in her penthouse, the once pristine space now cluttered with empty wine glasses and unopened mail. Her father, Richard Donovan, had frozen her accounts after a particularly scathing article traced the viral photo back to her. "You didn't. Just hurt her," he'd said, his voice cold. "You embarrassed the family. Fix yourself, Claire." She'd laughed it off, but the silence that followed was deafening. No assistant, no credit cards, just the weight of her own choices. She scrolled through Twitter, her hands shaking as she read the latest comments. Karma's real. She thought she was untouchable. Claire slammed her phone down, her perfect world in tatters. At the hotel, Lucas Bennett had stepped out of the shadows. He'd revealed himself to Mia a week ago, during a quiet moment in the VIP lounge. She'd been arranging flowers in a vase, her movements precise when he approached, no disguise this time. "Mia Thompson?" he'd said, extending a hand. "Lucas Bennett, Cole Enterprises. I'm part of the group that oversees this hotel." Mia had frozen, her mind racing. Lucas Bennett, the tech billionaire, the man whose name was whispered. In boardrooms. "You're the Lucas Bennett?" she'd stammered. He'd smiled, his green eyes warm. "Just Lucas. And I saw what happened that day on Michigan Avenue. You didn't deserve it." Mia had stood there, her heart pounding, piecing it together. The notes, the flowers, the promotion, the scholarship. "It was you," she'd said, her voice barely above a whisper. Lucas had nodded, his expression earnest. "I saw you keep going, Mia. That's not something you teach. I just gave you a chance to shine." She'd laughed nervously, overwhelmed. "I don't know how to thank you." He'd shaken his head. "You already have. Just keep being you." Since then, Lucas had become a quiet presence in her life, stopping by the hotel to check on her, always respectful, never pushing. Their conversations were brief but meaningful, about her classes, Noah's school, the dreams she was starting to let herself believe in. Lucas saw his mother in her, the same quiet strength that had carried him through his own childhood. But it was more than that. Mia's resilience, her kindness, her refusal to break. They were drawing him in, a pull he hadn't expected. The gala was the culmination of it all. Lucas stood beside Mia now, his suit understated but sharp, his presence grounding her as they moved through the crowd. Guests approached, some offering congratulations, others curious about the cleaner-turned-scholar whose story had captured the city. Mia felt out of place, the weight of their stares heavy, but Lucas's hand brushed her elbow, a subtle reassurance. "You belong here," he whispered, and she nodded, her smile steadying. The hotel director, a tall woman named Ms. Harper, took the stage, her voice cutting through the chatter. "Tonight we celebrate not just 25 years of the Grand Meridian, but the people who make it extraordinary," she said. "One such person is Mia Thompson, whose strength and humility have inspired us all." The room erupted in applause, and Mia's cheeks flushed as Ms. Harper gestured for her to join her. Lucas gave her a gentle nudge, his eyes bright with pride. "Go on," he said. "This is your moment." Mia stepped onto the stage, her gown shimmering under the lights. The crowd quieted. their eyes on her. She took a deep breath, clutching the microphone, her voice steady despite the knot in her stomach. "A year ago, I was just a girl walking. To work, mud on my clothes, invisible to the world," she began. "I didn't ask for attention, just a chance to do my job. But one act of cruelty and one act of kindness changed everything." She glanced at Lucas, her heart swelling. "I'm here because I kept going, because someone believed in me before I could believe in myself, and because kindness is louder than status." The room fell silent, then erupted in applause, some guests standing, others wiping tears. Even the hotel staff at the back, who'd once whispered about her, clapped, their faces softened with respect. Mia stepped down, her legs shaky, and Lucas met her at the edge of the stage, his smile wide. "You were incredible," he said, handing her a plaque from Ms. Harper, engraved with her name and the words, "For strength and spirit." Mia clutched it, her eyes glistening. "Is this really happening?" she whispered. Lucas nodded. "You earned every second of it." Across the room, Claire watched from a shadowed corner, her presence unnoticed. She'd snuck into the gala, hoping to salvage her image, but seeing Mia on stage, hearing her words, was a gut punch. Claire's life had unraveled since the viral photo. Her father had suspended her from the company board, her sponsors had dropped her, and her followers had turned on her. She'd paid a shady blogger to post a smear piece claiming Mia was using Lucas for his money, but it had backfired, traced back to her in days. Now, watching Mia shine, Claire felt something new. Shame. She slipped out before anyone could. "See her," her heels clicking against the marble floor, a sound swallowed by the gala's joy. After the event, Mia and Lucas stepped onto the hotel's rooftop garden, the city lights twinkling below. Mia held the plaque, her fingers tracing the engraving. "I used to think people like you didn't see people like me," she said, her voice soft. Lucas handed her a cup of hot cocoa, his own in hand. "I didn't always," he admitted. "But you reminded me of my mom. She was a cleaner, too, raised me alone, never complained. You have that same strength." Mia looked at him, surprised. "You never talk about her." Lucas shrugged, his gaze distant. "People expect me to act like I built everything myself. But women like you, like her, they're the ones who build everything." Mia smiled, her heart full. They stood in silence, the city humming below, a peace that didn't need words. The next day, Mia returned to the spot on Michigan Avenue where it all began. The road had been repaved, smooth and clean, no trace of the puddle that had changed her life. She slipped off her shoes, her bare feet touching the asphalt, a symbolic release of the past. Lucas joined her, kicking off his own shoes, his grin boyish. "What are you doing?" he asked. Mia paused, looking down at the road. "Leaving the last trace of who I was," she said, "and stepping into who I am now." Without a word, Lucas stood beside her, their bare feet side by side, equal in the quiet moment. Mia's story spread beyond Chicago. National blogs picked it up, calling it a modern Cinderella tale, though Mia hated the comparison. She'd earned this, not wished for it. Her classes at DePaul were going well, her professors mentoring her toward a future in hospitality management. The hotel staff treated her differently now, some asking for her input, others offering genuine smiles. Even Tanya, once cold, nodded in respect. Jake, after his suspension, kept his distance, his resentment silenced by his own actions. Lucas and Mia grew closer, their bond deepening through shared walks and quiet conversations. He hadn't proposed, but his eyes said what words didn't. He was hers, and she was his. One evening, as they walked home to Englewood, Noah ran out to meet them, his grin wide. "Is he your friend, Mia?" he asked, eyeing Lucas. Lucas bent down, smiling. "Hi, Noah. I've heard a lot about you." Mia hugged her brother close. "He's my everything," she said softly, and Lucas's heart tightened, seeing the family he'd never had. Claire, meanwhile, faced her reckoning. Stripped of her privilege, she volunteered at a community center, cleaning floors to earn her keep. It was humbling enough to make her see Mia's world for the first time. She never apologized. Not yet, but the seed was planted. Maybe one day she'd find the courage. A year later, Mia stood on the same rooftop garden, now a part-time manager at the Grand Meridian, her studies nearly complete. Lucas was beside her, their hands brushing, as they looked out at the city. "This started with mud," he said, his voice warm. "But look at you now." Mia smiled, her eyes bright. "She splashed mud on me. You planted a seed." He nodded, his gaze steady. "And you're blooming." They didn't need more words. The night was quiet, their love a steady hum, proof that even the smallest act of kindness could spark a journey from mud to stardom. Mia wasn't just seen, she was chosen, not just by Lucas, but by herself. And as Chicago sparkled below, she knew this was only the beginning.